In a world where laughter was king.
First chick flicks I ever admitted to liking. 10 things I hate about you. I'm actually going to do 10 things I hate about self-storage. I'm going to date myself here so you have an idea of how old I am. But one of the first chick flicks I ever admitted to liking, my senior year in high school, 10 things I hate about you. I am actually going to do 10 things I hate about self-storage. Now, I do not look anything like Heath Ledger, but I'm going to do my best to make this as entertaining as possible. So let's just get right into it. Number one, tenants moving out with telling you or leaving their stuff behind. You know, you would think that tenants will understand that, I got 300, 500 doors in this facility. It's not reasonable for me to have to check every single day whether you left your unit or not. And more importantly, your lease says you're going to tell us when you get out of your unit. Well, that doesn't happen a lot of times. So a lot of times we end up locking out a unit, or after a person gets their first late fee, they'll say, oh, hey, well, I left this unit. You guys should have known that. So that always drives me nuts because it's kind of like, okay, cool. Well, really expect that, I'm going to keep track of these 500 doors. Number two, dumping is always a problem, even when you have cameras. I have cameras that are directly on my dumpster or directly on my garbage can, which most of the time we don't even like to have a garbage can or dumpster, but sometimes we need to have a small one in the office. Or even on some of my sites with very large lots where we try to fence off an area, people will try to drive their car someplace else. And a lot of times the tenants, when they get caught red-handed, they'll try to say, oh, somebody stole my car, or that wasn't me. And then you got to try to verify it against their license. And to be honest, you fight it more just on principle to keep other people from doing it, but you actually lose money from trying to get them to go pick their stuff up versus just paying a $60 fee to just have somebody dump it. So that's a delicate balance there, but it just drives you nuts. If you got stuff and you brought it to the facility, make sure it goes with you. Come on, what's up with that? Number three, storage auctions aren't as fun as the TV shows make them. People think that we want to be famous and we want to be it. No, we do not want to be famous as an owner. I do not want you to know who I am. I do not want to auction people's stuff. It's not fun. I don't like collecting people's birth certificates and things like that, but I also don't want to go through your stuff, if I'm the owner or my staff. And in a lot of states, you actually can't even profit off of that. And so a lot of times when we auction somebody's stuff, the main reason why we're auctioning their stuff is because they go AWOL. Like, we just can't get a hold of them. We try to work with people. But then if we make money on it, now we got to pay that person 20 bucks or 30 bucks back, when the whole reason why we auctioned their stuff in the first place is we couldn't even find them. So to be honest, it's just a big hassle. Storage auctions are not all what they seem to be. Number four, tenants can get upset for things completely out of your control. I mean, you look at, I have quite a few facilities in the Midwest. And, it's very common in the Midwest, there'll be 70, 80, 90 degrees during the day. And then overnight, it'll drop to like 40 degrees. So what happens? Mother Nature basically cools down, and then water or mist in the air hits the steel. And then what happens? You get condensation on the walls. I can't do that. If you have outdoor non-climate control units, I can't control the condensation. If you want me to control some condensation, then get one of my climate control units, Or for example, if we have a blizzard and you can't get to your stuff because you want to access at 6 a.m., well, my plow guy, unfortunately, doesn't always get there at 6 a.m. And so, unfortunately, you got to work around things. But people often understand that, hey, it's storage. It's 4 walls and a door. How can you mess that up? Now, this kind of ties with number five. A self-storage facility's SaaS is predicated on strong reviews and maintaining a high rating. And so you have people like, we had a tenant a while back that was paying like $45 for one unit. They're a grandfather tenant that we had already raised up that well below market. And they complained and said, 1 star. Yeah, they wouldn't allow me to throw my stuff. Like, is it that hard to ask for a dumpster when I move my stuff out of my unit? And I'm like, so you want me to pay $200 a month for a dumpster for your $40 unit? Like, we're not encouraging dumping here. So, of course, you just got to deal with that. So then you got to reach out to the tenant. And then even though we think we're right, it doesn't matter. What the tenant thinks is right is reality for them. So you got to work with it. When you have multifamily and you have a property manager, your brand normally is not on the line because normally people are leaving a bad review about the property manager. They're not leaving about the owner. So those are some of the stresses of dealing with the service business. Number 6, non-recourse financing is significantly harder to get than other asset classes. So, while we have holdings in multifamily, other asset classes, a lot of times you can get essentially what's called agency debt, which is basically government-backed debt where you do not have to personally guarantee a property. Now, I know a lot of people say, oh, hey, well, you shouldn't have to have a worry about personally guarantee a property. To kind of flip this switch, if you have $100 million of real estate and you're putting up a personal guarantee that ties that up as well, you actually could be doing a disservice to your other investors by putting that up as a potential risk or collateral as well. So if you're thinking long term, you need to go after non-recourse financing, but there's a lot less options in self-storage because your primary government lending is SBA, so Small Business Administration, which requires a personal guarantee. Number 7, overbuilding is real. Especially for somebody that has a trades background, storage is not that complicated to build. Now, obviously, running them, building the right kind of units, and how to operate them are a lot of things that people don't want to know. But I've been in markets before where we've done a feasibility study that says we can absorb 10 to 40,000 square feet, only to find somebody to build 3 times that or within a year, and then just floods the market overnight, and then occupancy drops and then rates drop as well, and people just assume, well, if you build it, they'll come. That doesn't necessarily apply to real estate. So if you're in a market where land is cheap, then you also have cheap competition to get built as well, so you're more likely to be in a market that's overbuilt. And nationally, I'm seeing this trend happen quite a bit more. This is probably, I would say, even though it's number 7 on the list, it's probably what keeps me up the most at night, which is also why personally our company is going after more population dense areas where we can avoid a low barrier to competition. We want a high barrier so that way then we don't have competition. Number 8, it can take a lot of tenants to make money overcome repairs. Now, I'll just use this as an example, but if I replace a door on one of my units, a lot of times it costs me like somewhere between $1,300 to $1,700 to replace the door, which that sounds like a lot. But that's because when you're ordering a single door, you're paying a freight for that. If you store it, then it can get built while it's in storage. And so you just get no economies of scale. Whereas I can do it for like a tenth, an eighth of the price if I do 500 doors at a time. And so if you look at that, if somebody basically like leans up a pallet against a door or something like that, or they try to break in and they bend the door, I replace the door costing $1,700, $1,300. But then if I only get $50 to $100 of rent for it, then I just gave up a year, 2 years of income off of that. So that can get magnified quite a bit. If you take a loss on it, it's going to take a lot of units to make that up. And keep in mind too, when I have 300 units, that might be only, $30,000 rent roll. I could get that same rent roll off of maybe a tenth or a third of the units, if I were in multifamily. Number 9, tenants that do not embrace technology can cost a lot of money. Now, we have a P.O. box, and normally, just to not really just irk tenants right off the bat, we will normally allow tenants that are currently paying with check to stay there, just mainly to avoid bad reviews, and also because we just want to make sure that they have a good experience with us while we try transitioning electronically. But those tenants, oftentimes, those 3% of tenants or 1% of tenants that don't have text messages, don't get emails, want mailed statements, they oftentimes take more than the rest of the tenants combined because they'll call in and say, hey, I haven't seen my statement applied. You have to have somebody go out to your P.O. box or office and make sure the mail is applied in time with payments. And so it can be a big pain. Like I have one tenant that was constantly sending checks in 3 days before, and then it was running late, and then she was getting upset because the post office wasn't processing it fast enough. And then it just became a massive pain because we were dating 5 or 6 calls, getting charged $5 to $7 a call from our call center, only to basically break even on this person for their unit. So eventually we basically had to let this person leave or just face the fact that, we're going to not make money off that property, because those tenants that do not embrace the technology make the rest of your system to implement that much harder. Number 10, legislation in place for non-payment tenant evictions done improperly can be costly. When I really think about this, we have not had this, but there has been a number of cases in the industry, particularly around military personnel, where you have to get a court order to remove or auction that unit. Now, in the past, it was up to the tenant to disclose that they were military personnel. Now we are finding that if somebody is basically wearing, let's say, some type of military gear, maybe has a tattoo, and they don't disclose it, the storage facility still has to make a reasonable effort, even though it's not stated in the law that way, but it's being interpreted this way, to make the effort to determine whether somebody's in the military. And we're not talking about $1,000-$2,000 claims. I'm talking about $40,000 to $70,000 claims. Could be an entire year's worth of income from you. So while this is something that does not happen very often, it keeps me up at night, because if I were to take a $40,000 to $70,000 loss, even on my largest facilities, that'd be a tough pill to swallow, whether I own it or my owner or my investors simply just say, hey, we got hit with this fine because this guy said that because his email was Stars and Stripes LLC or whatever, that we should have known that he was in the military when we auctioned his stuff. Those are the 10 things I hate about self-storage. As I go through this, I'm going to probably think of many other stories. To be honest, most of the stuff is comical because we work through these things on a daily basis. But if any of these things are things that you don't think you can handle being for self-storage, I would rethink it or consider partnering with somebody else that can handle it. I hope you enjoy this. And then I will actually be speaking April 12th and actually April 11th at ISS World Expo in Las Vegas. Look us up. So info at Twin Oaks Cap if you want to reach out and see if maybe we can grab lunch or meet with some of our investors.